Automation and fashion are two words that are increasingly coming up in the same sentence. Brands want to keep inventories at a minimum and need faster production to make that possible. They also need to maximize personalization in order to provide consumers with what they want when they want it. Figuring out how to put all of these components together in one smooth-running system has eluded most manufacturers. But there's one man who looks like he's cracked the code. I'm Jane Singer, and thank you for joining me here on A Seat at the Table and being part of our global community of industry leaders. Today we have Samuel Moses joining us. Samuel is founder and CEO of Socrates Custom Socks, which specializes in producing high-quality custom socks with blazingly fast turnaround times. He's combined his hands-on experience in market research, finance, and retail to come up with a system that provides customers with a unique product that is outperforming the market. With over 4,000 clients worldwide, Socrates must be doing something right. In this episode, Samuel talks about how to find a niche customer base, how he continually improves efficiency in his organization, using data and market research to identify and deliver the right products for your market, and much more. Finding the right talent takes a lot of searching, especially in a fast-changing market. That's why top corporations and even smaller enterprises rely on AsiaNet consultants to help them fill key positions. Since 1988, AsiaNet has been working in partnership with its global clients to help them make the right strategic hires. They have a well-earned reputation for being able to fill even those difficult-to-fill positions. So if you need to recruit new talent, or you think you might be doing that soon, head on over to their website. That's asianetconsultants.com, asianetconsultants.com. I'll also put a link in the show notes. Now let's sit down with Samuel and find out how he's disrupted the sock industry. Sam, I am so excited to have you on the show because what you're talking about, I think, is going to be tremendously interesting to so many people in our audience.
Yeah, definitely. We're happy to be here. Happy to be here and excited to speak to you.
So maybe before we dive in, first explain to me a little bit about what exactly is Socrates.
Sure. So Socrates is a company that I started about 4 years ago that what we do is custom socks.
Wow.
So in the niche of producing socks, we do custom socks. So what it is, companies will come to us, large and small, and they're going to a trade show, or they have employees that they want to give a gift to, or they want to give something out to their clients as a thank you. And we'll brand the sock to their brand using their specific branding. They'll say, okay, we like that sock, and then we'll produce it, comes with fully packaged with a label, and we deliver it to them. So it's kind of like a fully packaged, branded sock to their brand that they can give out as a gift. And we service companies all over the world. I mean, UK, US, Canada, Germany, Israel, literally companies all over the world are coming to us, and then they're giving this item out either at trade shows or to their employees or to their clients. So it's a nice branding tool for them, and we make the process super simple, streamlined process so that it's easy to go from the idea that they have or the idea that we've given them to the production and delivery of the socks.
I think it's interesting because what you're doing, from what I can see, is fully automated. I think that the platform you've designed, and correct me if I'm misunderstanding, is fully automated. So you're actually not having to do all those in-between steps, which is interesting because there is so much talk today around being able to automate more of the apparel producing process, right, which typically had been very labor intensive and still continues to be in many cases. Tell me about what you've done with automation.
Sure. So, we've had to kind of scale up on how our processes work because of the volume. So from when a lead comes in and how we get back to the clients, to how we send them the designs, to how we then process the order, to how it then goes to the factory, how we quality check it, and then how we deliver, it has to be a very streamlined process, and there's a lot of tech involved with that. At the end of the day, the actual design work is a manual process. That is manual, but everything around that manual process is automated. So the way that we get the board to the client is automated. The way that we get the final design to the factory is automated. And then, that's how you're able to do, 200, 300 orders a month. Otherwise, if every order had a lot of manual processes there, it would just slow us down. And I noticed just from the invoicing, if you're doing a manual invoice process and you go from 10 orders a month to 30, the amount of manual time that it takes you to do that is just slowing you down so much that you're spending all your time creating invoices and you can't get, do the real things that you want to do, like customer service, and make sure that all the orders are being produced correctly, make sure that the designs are proper for the clients. So yeah, there's a lot of technology behind the operations. The client doesn't necessarily see that, but because they're just seeing the end product of what we're developing. But there is a lot of processes in place to let us go from the start of an order to the end of an order very smoothly. And then we've definitely invested in that.
Right. Now, which is, of all the technological processes that you're using, what was sort of the newest innovation, you might say?
Yeah, so definitely our Salesforce is very powerful. And Salesforce is the kind of tool where, they give you a blank slate and you can kind of create what you want from it. And we've definitely taken our Salesforce from, where very early days where we're just using it as a basic CRM to a fully inclusive system that processes orders, and factory can log in and get the orders, and they can upload the samples for us to review and approve, to invoicing, to automated emails, to everything. So the entire company, in a way, you could say, runs off Salesforce. And we've taken our time and we've invested quite a bit of resources to create a Salesforce that everybody on our team can use and everybody can benefit from. And the ultimate benefit is to the client, because they're getting a process that's super streamlined. There's very little error rates because it doesn't rely on memory, or it doesn't rely on manual entry. So there's less human error there.
Wow, really interesting. I mean, I never would have thought of Salesforce being applied in that way, right? I mean, you think of it more as CRM for customers, sort of like a database to keep track of every interaction that you've had, but not as a front end for manufacturing. I wouldn't have thought of it from that point of view.
Yeah, I think we're unique in the field that we do that. So there's no touch to the client that doesn't go through Salesforce, even to the end, even to the part where we get the review, or to the point where we give them a gift at the end, or to the point where we ask them if they're happy. Everything kind of goes through Salesforce in an automated process. So everybody's going through the same experience every time, regardless of where they are in the world, regardless if the order is 100 pairs or 20,000 pairs. Everybody's going through that same experience that we've set up from the beginning. And it doesn't rely on human memory to remember to do something. So the system is taking you through an experience, and it's doing it very, very, systematically.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you have been able to take something like this and systematize it down to that level throughout every stage of from initial design all the way through to actually shipping that order. To be able to do it that seamlessly is really interesting.
90% of our business comes from the premium products, incentivized business. Our clients are giving it away as a gift, and they're willing to invest in it. They're going to a trade show, they're spending $40,000-$50,000 at a trade show. This is a tool to get them to get people to come to the booth and interact with them. And we found that through data, we found that it's a very, very good tool. Like, booths that have this giveaway will attract more traffic. From a data perspective, we know those numbers will attract more traffic than a booth without this incentive. So, we like to tell people, you're spending $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to go to this trade show. Why not spend an extra $5 or $3 or $7 or whatever it is, and use this tool to get people to come to you to talk about your product? You can, it's a good icebreaker, I like to call it. It's an icebreaker. Somebody comes to your booth, you give them the sock, you talk about the sock for a few minutes, and then you talk to them. And then afterwards you follow up. Oh, did you try the sock? What do you think about it? Whatever. So it's a very easy hook, we call it. Right. And it's also easy to follow up. And also it's something that they're going to wear. I mean, nobody's going to just, not wear the sock. We designed it in a way that it's fashionable and everybody needs socks. It's not a product that, it's going to go to their drawer. It's going to go to their sock drawer. So it's a good product. It's definitely a good product. And we're very true to the product. We don't just jump around lots of different products. We're really true to doing the sock properly. And we do various different types of socks.
We're going to take a quick break now, and then we'll be right back.
We were hiring when we were making 50 to 100K monthly losses.
And why? Welcome to episode 1.
I can't think of a single founder who's been around for a decent amount of time in business who hasn't had their tunnel of year. This was that year. We're going to be okay, yeah, Sheree. Some are going to hear this and think, you TDP. But hear me out. You only have to do the math to understand that very soon we were $500,000 down.
It's really interesting that you did identify this one item. It's not always easy to identify an item. It sounds easy, but it's actually quite clever that you've been able to identify socks as having this potential. Tell me a little bit about how you got into this.
Sure. So I was in the retail business in Canada for many years, and we had a few high-end menswear stores up in Canada, in Toronto.
Okay.
And we were doing neckwear, and I was kind of like, they called me the king of neckwear. Like I knew everything that there was to know about neckwear, and I knew everything there was to know about making neckwear in Italy. And we did very well in the late 2000s and the 2008 all the way to 2018. It was a very good business, and we were selling neckwear to the financial district of Toronto, which is a very nice demographic. And I noticed that it was a very certain specific type of customer that was coming in, executives, certain people that valued that product or was willing to pay for that product. It was a very high-end product. And I said, I'm interested in a product that everybody can come, whether you're at the top of the chain or the lower end of the chain, wherever you are, we wanted a product that everybody could come and enjoy. So we started selling these happy socks, which at the time in 2010 was a very popular product. And then I got married and my wife's in advertising, and we said, why don't we create our own brand, create our own socks? So we came up with this name Socrates, and it's a play on the philosopher. And the original model was, what does your sock say about you? Are you polka dot? Are you stripes? Are you argyle? Are you zigzag? And then we were kind of tied to a personality. And that was kind of the play that we had. And so we started bringing in these socks into the store. And I think we became the number one seller of socks in downtown Toronto because our store was lined up. It was literally, we had this Christmas tree up at Christmas time, and we would have to replenish. The tree held, 700 to 1,000 socks, and we'd have to replenish that tree multiple times a day. There were lineups to get the socks. It was unbelievable, And I noticed that people were buying from grandchildren to grandparents, from the janitor to the CEO, from the wife to the husband to the boyfriend, girlfriend. Everybody was buying this product. And it was such an amazing thing because the store had been a certain demographic for so long. And now we're just meeting everybody all over downtown Toronto. And it was really nice. And we were even part of these corporate scavenger hunts where people were like, find the tree downtown Toronto where they have the socks, And
right.
So it was a really fun adventure. Now, what happened was at that time, because we were in the financial district, people started coming to us and saying, hey, who makes these socks? These are great socks. And we would say, it's not another company, it's us. We make the socks. So then they would say, you know what, Sam, I'm going to a trade show. I need 500 pairs. I want to give them out. Can you do it? I said, I guess so. Why not? It's just another design, right? So then I had a designer. We designed the socks. We designed the label. And then we did the first order. And then I began to see that this is a need. People like this idea. They like the ability to create their own branded socks. Everybody wants to have their own brand, So then we started to go online, digital marketing. And then since then, the business has boomed quite a bit, and we've transitioned out of retail, and now full time, all we do is the sock. And actually, there's this one employee that I have. She's more like a partner, but an employee that I have, and she works with me, and she's with me in the store for so 7 years, 8 years later, she's still with me, and she's my head designer. I was very lucky that the manager of my store was also a very talented designer. And she's incredible. She's really good. And she works with us. She works with me very closely. We have a team of people. We have salespeople. We have web programmers. We have Salesforce developers. It's just a sock. But the amount of people that you need, sometimes I feel, am I a SaaS business? What am I doing here?
Right.
So it's just a sock, but it's an amazing product. We're very passionate about it. And like you said, you touched on it really well, taking technology to make it easy for the client. Because what we noticed in the beginning when we didn't have technology, there were a lot of pain points for the client. They're like, why is it taking so long? The communication was a little lower. So putting a process in place, because we're getting, 200, 300 orders a month, putting a process in place was really important.
You're right. A process is something that people overlook a lot. Even people who already know that you need it. But very rarely, from what I've come to learn, do people ever dive in deep enough on process. I think you're bringing up some good points on that. We somehow think the tech will just take care of things without really developing that process. I mean, what has been your experience with that?
So I think what happens is in the beginning, you're kind of like, Well, you're just happy to get a client, so you'll do
Right.
everything manually. You're just like, oh wow, this is great. I got a client.
Right.
Everything can be done in email, and everything can be done by calling somebody and talking about it. And then, another order comes in, and then orders start to come in. And you realize, wait a minute, I'm losing track of the deals. I'm losing track of the names. And I'm relying on my memory too much. And then at that point, we said we can't do this. We have to have a real structured process in place. And that took time, though. Like, that took some time to develop, because we actually had to understand what the process is, because in the beginning, it's so random. We're just like, create the label, creating the shipping label, which sounds like an easy thing, right? Like, just create the shipping label. But when you're doing it 300 times a month, and when you're shipping to all over the world, and when in each shipment sometimes has multiple places it has to go with very high, time sensitive deadlines, there has to be an automation there, because you can't rely on your memory to remember, oh, I got to create the label for this job and this job. You're in the middle of family dinner. You can't just run around and start creating labels. The system has to be doing it, and the system has to be doing it properly. And then what happens is you start to rely on the technology, and then sometimes you're over relying on the technology. So then, there's like this balance you have to do of checks and balances against the system, but then not relying on memory and making sure there's a system in place. So there's this kind of like this middle ground there, where you're like, you're the one controlling the system's not controlling you. So we've gone through that process, and we're there. And then, I always tell my staff, what happens if we went to 600 orders? Like, does our system have the capability to do that? Because I see some holes already. And then you're always patching, you're always fixing it, you're never really comfortable. So yeah, that's definitely what I found. And I would say that if we spoke in a year, me and you, I would say, wait a minute, our technology has changed a lot since then, So we're always innovating it, we're always improving it. And the ultimate goal, this is important, the ultimate goal of this technology is not to just have very savvy technology that looks good. It's to enhance the customer experience, because that's what we care about. We care about the customer experience and the customer getting the right product at the right time in the right way.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, one of the most difficult things that I believe people have to try and balance is the use of automation and everything that brings to the table with the personalization and the customer experience, and providing them with that sense that there's someone who cares about them, right? That they're just not, part of an automated system. How do you manage that?
So we definitely like to go in there and have a personal touch. You're right. You can't just turn everything into a template, and I'll be honest, some of the stuff is templated. There's no way around it. Just give it the volumes. But we have to have a personal touch. At the end, we send a gift card, and that's kind of a personal thing. We look over the deal, we send a gift card, and it's based on the deal. We see what happened during the deal. If there was some kind of slowdown or something like that, we address it in the gift card. But even if the deal went perfectly, we send it. But you have to kind of have a personal thing. And we definitely, we got lucky, because in the beginning, when we had very little technology, we developed really good relationships with some of our clients, where they know us and they come to us, and it got to the point where they were asking us for other products, and we were even doing it. But then as we started to scale, we really had to stick to the sock, because we became experts in the sock, and then we're not experts in water bottles. And then people were asking us for water bottles, and we can't give them the same service and quality on water bottles as we can the sock, because what we do for 10 hours a day versus what we do for 10 minutes a day is going to come out differently. So Absolutely. We kind of had to say, look, we're not the water bottle guys. We could do it here and there, but we're not water bottle guys. So let's just stick to the socks. And then, we got them different types of socks. So we went from dress to athletic to wool to knee highs. They went through the life cycle of socks, So, but yeah, we definitely had some good relationships in the beginning that helped us. Clients that I speak to still from the early days, who are kind of like almost advisors to me, because they're marketing gurus, and I use them and they use me as just sounding boards for ideas. And it's great. So that's important. What you touched on is important, because you can't just create a system and have the system spit out emails and then there's no personal touch. That doesn't work. People see through that, and it's not real, and nobody wants to, and also the team internally doesn't want to work like that. They don't want to work like they're a robot pressing buttons. They want to connect with people, and especially through what we do, we're so creative and we're so, unique to the brand, so that we don't want it to just get lost in the technology. We want our personalities to come through these designs, so that's definitely, again, another balance that you have. Too much technology, too much templating. So, that's also a constant battle for sure.
I'm glad that you pointed that out, because I think that is one of the problems that people struggle with, because I think in some respects you could say, particularly in the apparel sector, people are undersold on technology, right? It's been slow to the game on that. But yet, on the other hand, in many other sectors, people just feel everything should be automated, and you do lose the touch with the customer, and then you ultimately lose the customer, right? Because when you lose that personal connection at a certain point, right? If it's too automated, they can go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, it just becomes like a commodity at that point. Yeah, and I definitely, my designers for sure, they're the most, and even the project managers, I had this idea, let's build a portal and everybody can do everything in the portal and everybody can communicate through the portal. And we got a lot of pushback from internally because they're just like, it's just too removed. It's just too removed. We're already not on the phone with them. We're already not, so now you want to take away the email aspect. It's kind of like, anybody could just replicate it at that point. So they wanted to keep those relationships real, and I agreed with them. And so we didn't do the portal, even though I was definitely leaning towards the portal, because I think it would take a lot of headaches away from the process. But again, we're still going back and forth with the client one-on-one. It's just backed by the technology to make sure that when the client asks for something, that the requests are being handled efficiently.
I think that's a good point. You're using the technology as a tool to make your own people more efficient and better, as opposed to replacing your people, which is where, like you're pointing out, when you're replacing your people with technology, you no longer have a moat around your business whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because your people are
and it
still...
becomes, self-serve in this business, we don't believe in it. Everything, we're full serve. We want to be full serve. We want to take care of the customer. We also want to make it easier on ourselves to take care of the customer. So that's where what you're talking about, the technology comes in. Make it easier on us to serve the customer fully, versus just relying on the customer to serve themselves and hope for the best,
Right. Yeah, that's a very good point. I think almost nobody really brings that up when we look at all these different things. It's really, how do you replace people, because it's cheaper and more reliable and it's easier, but you're right, nobody really thinks it through in the way that you have, which I think is really interesting. And I also like the fact that you've identified that your strength is really in staying in your lane and just being better and better at what you do, because the temptation to diversify is almost overwhelming, right?
Yeah, I feel it. I get a lot of pushback from the team because somebody comes to me and they want hoodies or t-shirts, and I'm like, okay, guys, we have the capability to do t-shirts. And they're like, Sam, no, we got to focus on what we do. And we got to just do really, really well at what we do and be experts in our field. And, they just, sometimes when the sock order comes in and there's a mug with it in a box, okay, we'll do that because it's in the context of a package. Okay. But, so that it is hard. And I constantly struggle with that as an owner and as a founder, is that, should I be selling more products or should I just be focusing more in my niche? We've decided to go into our niche and be experts in our niche. It's been working out for us so far, and we sleep at night well because we know that we know what we're doing, right. So versus like a client that comes to me and says, can you do, branded USB sticks? I don't know if that's still a thing, but if, branded USB sticks, I'm like, I guess so, but I wouldn't sleep as well because I want to make sure they're taken care of. But at the same time, I don't know everything about that. There's a Socrates for USB sticks out there. Maybe you should be using him, Right. So yeah, no, definitely. That's a good point. If that struggle, and there's always a struggle because you always think there's, maybe a pot of gold somewhere else, but you just got to kind of stick to your methods,
Absolutely. Now, getting a little bit back to the process, do you actually have your own factory that you own, or do you work in partnership with someone whose whole focus is on the production side?
Yeah, so we're partners with a factory in Italy. Okay. It's a very small run family business that we found through our neckwear production. When we were producing neckwear, Italy is a very amazing place. When I was producing neckwear, you have to imagine, I walk into this little factory and there are great grandchildren working there, that meaning their great grandparents were working there. And they were, they're now adults, but they really passed down a tradition of how to make neckwear. And they remember their grandparents and they remember their parents, and and now their kids, are learning the business, meaning like they're involved and they talk about it at the dinner table and they're showing them how to do the necktie. And it's in the blood over there. It's like third, fourth generation neckwear. So then we found a factory in Italy in a small little town in the Lombardy region outside Milan. And it's San Goffredo, and they do socks. And again, same kind of thing where grandparents and, parents, and now his kids will do it, so, and they're very passionate about the sock. It's not the kind of thing where you walk in, oh, it's a sock, they're passionate about the quality of the product, and it's a good quality product, and it's consistent, and they're really proud of it. So we partnered with them. We invested in them to get their technology up because it was a little bit, paper and pencil over there, So we invested with them to get that up, and then to work with them on, getting more machines because our volumes are very high, as our volumes got higher. And we work with them very closely. We go out there once or twice a year to see them and to see how things are going. But we have good people there that are very involved, and they tie into our system here to make sure that the orders are being completed on time and they're being completed completely. So they're fully aligned on our Salesforce. But that was hard. So that was hard. It was very hard to take factory owners and say, hey guys, let's come onto Salesforce. And they're like, what are you talking about? What's Salesforce? Right. We don't know this. Our grandparents didn't tell us about Salesforce, So we were like, okay, this is how it works. And we're doing screen shares. And even to get on the screen share was kind of relatively hard, And then they got it and they love it. And now they really rely on it, and they're into it, So that was something good. That was fun.
Now, do you source the raw materials yourself, or do you leave that to them?
So very unique. The reason we're able to produce and ship in 7 days, which is our model, which is our very unique model to us, and what stands us apart from our competition, we're able to ship in 7 days with any color that you design, is because the factory that we have in Italy and the yarn factory, the largest yarn factory in Europe, are relatively close to each other. They're like 5 minutes apart from each other. So they're able to just go there and pick up the yarn and come back if we need a color. So, but that's their specialty. They take care of that, and they have their own systems in place to make sure that they can get to the colors. We tell them what colors we need, and we have a kind of like a database of how those colors match up to the yarn, so that we're using this consistent system every time. So there's no guesswork. We're trying to take the guesswork out, because over 10 orders, guesswork's relatively okay. Over 300 orders, there's going to be mistakes, right? So we got to turn it into a science. Okay, this Pantone equals this yarn color. So no decisions are being made by us or them as to what it is. We know the answer, So that's the process we have in place for that. And we've cut down our error rate from, I think originally when we first started, it was like 4 or 5%. Now we're under 1%. So again, hard to get it to zero. Okay. I always tell people, can we get it to zero?
Yeah.
It's hard, I don't know, human error. There's still some human error, but to get under, when you do 300 orders and 1 or 2 come back, okay. And then what we do is we all automatically fix it for the client. We ship it, no problem,
Wow. It's so impressive. I think that, like you said, part of your strength is really that you have focused on one item, and you've narrowed that down, which has taken some of the incredible complexity out of something that's already complex to do.
You're right. It sounds like it's not complex. When I tell people, I'm walking around and I tell people what I do, they say, oh, you make socks. Okay. But when you get into the nitty gritty of any business, everything looks easy from when somebody else is doing it,
Right.
But when you get to the nitty gritty, it's actually very complicated. It's actually very complicated to make sure that these people that the clients are getting serviced properly, from the beginning to the end. And I like to say that we were so focused on after the sale, making sure that was correct, that then we came back and said, how do we make before the sale even easier? And then now we're able to get the client to the final sock really quickly. We know how to streamline to give them enough that they can make a quick decision. When you give them too much, they can't make a decision, so we just manage the whole process in a way to get everything running smoothly. It helps the customer, it helps us, it helps the factory, everybody's happy.
Yeah, so interesting. And, really, I'm so impressed by the way you've thought all of this through, because I think that, honestly, you don't see too many people who've actually gone through that whole process as you have and understood where you automate and where you don't, where you streamline and where maybe streamlining could actually be a negative. So I'm really quite impressed with the way you have thought the whole thing through.
Thank you. Yeah, no, definitely. It's great to talk about it. Sometimes we're just doing it, and then It's nice to have a conversation and go back and look at it from a little bit of a strategic overview, because we're always in the system, not above the system. So actually, it's great to talk about it also.
Yeah, isn't that the case, right? Whenever you're doing something, you're too close to it to really see the actual beauty of what you've achieved. You sort of need an outside person to look at it and say, what you've done is awesome. And you're thinking,
Yeah.
really? I just see the problems.
Yeah, I get that. I get that sometimes on our website, and we put a lot of work into our website where customers are like, "Oh, your website's so nice," and I go, "Oh, is it nice?" To me, it's my website. I mean, we look at it every single day, all day, so it's hard to, And then when we get that compliment, we're really happy about it. Or they say, "What do you think about this?" A new way of looking at how we can present information. So that's also good, and we take that into account and we make the changes. So we like both the compliments and the constructive feedback.
Absolutely. Now, you've achieved so much. What's next? Is there something you have your eye on that's sort of under development or something, the next step?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're definitely looking to bring in more people and bring in more. We want to develop our sales force even more, and we want to bring in more project managers, and we want to, be selling more socks in more areas. I think we have some goals internally that we're looking at trying to get to, and they're not just revenue based. They're more like team based. How does our team work better together? Because I work from Boca Raton, Florida, and some of them work up in Toronto, and then some of them work here with me. So how do we communicate better? How do we work as a team better and not just be in a system together where we're just chatting on the chatter over there, right? So that's definitely what we're looking at. From a client perspective, we're looking to bring out more different types of variations of the socks. And we notice that when we bring out new variations, and you would think, how many variations are there? There's actually quite a bit, So we actually notice that our client base, we have about 4,000 clients globally, that they respond. They're like, "Oh, Sam, I never thought of that. That's cool. And we're always trying to follow the trends to make sure that we're on trend, And our goal is to always design products that people are going to wear, not just like, slap logos all over the place and hope for the best, but
Right.
really design products that people are going to wear. Because it's not good. It's not good to produce products that people are not going to wear or throw out. We want people to wear it, enjoy it, and we want it to have a long life, better for the environment, better for everything. So we're just focused on our niche. We're not going to go down that road of trying to find the next product that can help us. We're trying to just stick in our niche, in our industry. And there's a lot of competition in our industry, so we're all pushing ourselves to be better. I like to say it's friendly competition. We're all getting our share of the pie, but each of us are pushing each other to be better, because there's things that our competitors are doing that we're like, "Oh, wow, that's interesting that they did that. How does that affect us?" Not that we would copy it, but what can we do to kind of like, make sure that problem that they've just addressed is being solved in our organization, So, but then just keeping everybody motivated. We're selling socks all day, every day. So we got to keep the team motivated. We got to keep them happy. So it's not as simple as it seems sometimes. And that's just not, paycheck things. So we're working on that also, keeping everybody happy, because if our team is happy and our designers are happy, it's going to come through in the work, and then our clients are going to be happy. So that's our goal.
So interesting. Well, Sam, how can people find you? I think a lot of people would love to be able to connect with you and to be able to get over to your website and check it out.
Yeah, definitely. We'd love for anybody to check it out. Shoot me an email. You can find us online at Sockrates, Sockrates, like Socrates, but it's Socrates, custom.com. So that's SocratesCustom.com. And of course, anybody can email me at sam@SocratesCustom.com. And I'd love to hear from anybody. That would be great. And definitely, yeah, that's the way to get a hold of me.
Okay, well, I'm going to include all of those links in the show notes, of course, and it'll be over on our podcast website as well. And I just want to thank you so much, Sam, for joining us here. I've learned a tremendous amount from what you're doing. It's really exciting, and I think so many people listening are going to just be fascinated by what you've been able to achieve and create.
Well, thanks for having me. It was great speaking to you, and I always love listening to your show. It's a great show, so it was a pleasure to come on, an honor, and thank you so much. Thanks you so much again for having me.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate the compliment. Thank you. A big shout out to our sponsor, AsiaNet Consultants. AsiaNet is a specialist in recruiting top talent in Asian markets. Since 1988, AsiaNet has been working in partnership with its global clients to help them make the right strategic hires. They have a well-earned reputation for being able to fill even those difficult-to-fill positions. To learn more about how AsiaNet Consultants can help you find the best talent, check out their website at asianetconsultants.com. That's asianetconsultants.com. Thank you for joining me here on A Seat at the Table. If you enjoyed this episode or learned something from it, I'd love to hear about it. If you'd like to support the show, please hit the subscribe button. And if you can take a minute to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or other channels, that would be fabulous. And check out our podcast website, where you can find all of the episodes of A Seat at the Table and Launch to Legendary. That's seatpodcast.com, SEAT podcast.com. And if there's something you'd like to share, ideas, suggestions, or comments, please feel free to reach out. I would love to hear from you. Thank you again for joining me here today and being part of our professional community. I'm Jane Singer, and I'll see you in the next podcast.